The mahogany conference table gleamed under the crystal chandelier as Marcus Wellington III adjusted his gold cufflinks and surveyed the candidates before him. As the CEO of Wellington International, a global consulting firm worth over $2 billion, he was accustomed to interviewing the cream of the crop. Harvard MBAs, Yale graduates, prep school royalty, that's what filled his company's ranks. Today's final interview was for Senior International Relations Director, a position that would oversee operations across 4 continents. The salary package was substantial, 7 figures plus bonuses. Marcus expected nothing less than perfection. 3 candidates sat across from him. Bradley Ashworth from Princeton, complete with his family's old money pedigree. Catherine Morrison, a Stanford graduate whose father owned half of Silicon Valley. And then there was Keisha Washington, a young black woman whose resume had somehow made it past his initial screening despite coming from a state school he'd never heard of. Marcus barely glanced at Keisha as he began his usual intimidation routine. Ladies and gentlemen, this position requires someone who can navigate the complexities of international business. We're talking about multi-million-dollar deals with clients from Tokyo to Dubai, from Sao Paulo to Stockholm. This isn't a job for the faint of heart. He leaned back in his leather chair, his voice dripping with condescension. Tell me, what makes you think you're qualified to represent Wellington International on the global stage? Bradley straightened his Harvard tie. Well, sir, my family has been in international business for 3 generations. I've summered in the Hamptons with the Yamamoto family from Japan, and my fraternity brother's father runs operations in Germany. Plus, I took French in prep school. Marcus nodded approvingly. Excellent background, Bradley. Catherine flipped her blonde hair confidently. Mr. Wellington, my father's tech companies operate in 12 countries. I've attended galas and charity events with dignitaries from around the world. I also speak conversational Spanish from my semester abroad in Barcelona. Well, mostly I hung out with other Americans, but still. Very impressive, Catherine. Marcus turned to Keisha with barely concealed disdain. And you, Miss Washington, is it? What exactly do you bring to the table? Keisha sat up straight, her voice clear and confident. Mr. Wellington, I speak 9 languages fluently. The room fell silent for a moment before Marcus burst into laughter. 9 languages? Really? He exchanged amused glances with Bradley and Catherine, who were also smirking. Let me guess, you took Spanish in high school, maybe picked up some French from Duolingo, and now you're counting English as your first language? That's quite creative math, young lady. Bradley chuckled. That's adorable. I bet she counts Pig Latin as one of them. Catherine giggled behind her manicured hand. Maybe Klingon from Star Trek? But Keisha didn't flinch. Instead, she looked directly at Marcus and began to speak, her voice steady and confident. En primer lugar, hablo español con fluidez por crecer en barrio donde era necesario para sobrevivir, she began in perfect Spanish. Secondly, je parle français couramment parce que ma grand-mère était Haitian, et m'a appris des mots plus jeune. Marcus's laughter began to fade as he realized her pronunciation was flawless. Keisha continued without missing a beat. Ich spreche auch fließend Deutsch, da ich ein Jahr in Berlin verbracht habe, wo ich als Übersetzerin gearbeitet habe. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. Eu também falo português fluentemente, porque trabalhei como imigrantes brasileiros em minha cidade natal. Marcus felt his mouth go dry as he recognized the authenticity of her accents, the natural flow of her speech. She said in Hindi, and the voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice. That's Spanish, French, German, Mandarin, Italian, Portuguese, Hindi, Arabic, and English. 9 languages as I mentioned. Marcus's face had gone pale. In 30 years of business, he had never encountered anyone who spoke 9 languages fluently, let alone someone he had just dismissed so callously. How did you learn all of these? He stammered. Kaisha's expression remained professional, but there was steel in her voice. Mr. Wellington, while Bradley was summering in the Hamptons, I was working 3 jobs to pay for college. One was at a restaurant in Little Italy where I learned Italian from the cooks. Another was at a Brazilian grocery store where I picked up Portuguese. During college, I tutored immigrant children in English while they taught me their languages. She paused, letting that sink in. I learned Mandarin during my 2 years teaching English in Beijing, a program I paid for myself. I picked up Arabic working with Syrian refugees at the community center. French came from my Haitian grandmother, and Spanish from growing up in a predominantly Latino neighborhood. Hindi came from working at an Indian restaurant to save money for my study abroad program in Germany. Bradley and Catherine looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. While Catherine was at charity galas, Kaisha continued, I was at community centers, helping translate for families who couldn't afford professional interpreters. While you were networking at country clubs, I was building real relationships with real people from around the world. Marcus felt smaller with each word. I had no idea. Of course you didn't, Kaisha said quietly. Because you looked at me and made assumptions. You saw my skin color, saw that I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and decided I wasn't worth your respect or attention. She stood up gracefully. Mr. Wellington, your company may operate in multiple countries, but if this interview is any indication of your corporate culture, you're not really connecting with the people there. You're just doing business with other wealthy Americans who happen to live abroad. Marcus watched in stunned silence as this remarkable young woman gathered her papers. The international business world isn't just about fancy cocktail parties and private school connections, Kaisha said. It's about understanding people, respecting their cultures, and communicating with them in their own languages. It's about building bridges, not walls. She walked toward the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, Mr. Wellington, I wasn't planning to accept your offer anyway. I've done my research on Wellington International. Your company has been losing contracts in Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East for the past 3 years. Your competitors are eating your lunch because they actually invest in cultural competency and linguistic diversity. Marcus's jaw dropped. She was absolutely right, a fact he hadn't shared with any of the candidates. I've already accepted a position with Morrison Global, ironically, Catherine's father's biggest competitor. They're expanding into 15 new markets this year, and they need someone who can actually communicate with their international partners without relying on expensive translators or making cultural mistakes that cost millions. As Kaisha reached the door, Marcus finally found his voice. Wait, please. I made a terrible mistake. The position is yours if you want it. Name your salary. Kaisha turned back with a sad smile. Mr. Wellington, money can't fix what's wrong here. You need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why you automatically assumed a black woman from a state school couldn't possibly be more qualified than your Ivy League candidates. Until you address that, all the money in the world won't save your company from its cultural blindness. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Marcus alone with his prejudices and the devastating realization that he had just let the most qualified candidate he'd ever met walk away because of his own ignorance. 6 months later, Wellington International lost 3 major international contracts to Morrison Global. The deals were negotiated by their new senior director of international relations, a brilliant young woman who spoke 9 languages and understood that true success in global business comes from respecting and connecting with people from all walks of life. Marcus never forgot the lesson Keisha taught him that day, though it came at the cost of millions in lost revenue and a humbling reminder that competence and brilliance don't come with pedigree labels attached.